The Fall of a Matriarch by Free. I want to start by expressing that this story is based on true events. My body is still processing the loss of my aunt's physical essence, so you may or may not hear my voice shake as I read. Grief is heavy, but healing is powerful. For those who can relate, may peace be within us all. Enjoy the story, and remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for more. Intro. I didn't know it would be my last time seeing her. I wish it wasn't. More than that, I wish she'd been conscious enough for me to say goodbye. But I guess that's how these things go. If I could turn back, I'd ask her, tell me about my grandmother. There wasn't much she knew about my own mother, not much she knew about herself. Their mother died when she was only 5, but Karen, much older. So it would have done me justice to inquire more about my roots. Sadly, the idea didn't come across my mind until it was too late. She was gone, and there was no turning back now. Segment 1. My last time with her. It all happened rather quickly. She'd just been to visit. We'd talked, we'd laughed. We'd enjoyed the company of one another. Her presence brought stillness to our home, yet even still, I'd missed the opportunity to truly indulge in her essence. I took pleasure in assisting her as her body and strength was fading. It was no bother to me. It was the least I could do for the seed she'd sown into our family. It was obvious she'd felt like a burden, as if she'd inconvenienced us, but she was owed this. Her flowers were long overdue, so I answered every call with joy, a smile on my face, because this was no daunting task. It was my duty, and my pleasure at that. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. She talked of the future, regaining her strength and prolonging her time here. She even had visible improvements, which excited us. I remember the pride she felt in being able to lift her leg onto the bed without any assistance. This was progress, yet it wasn't enough. If I could turn back the hands of time, I'd tell her what I know now. The present is most important. It's all we have. So whether you see tomorrow or you don't, you've made the most of your existence today, and nothing gets better than that. On her last day with us, as she prepared to transfer to another family member, she brought us all breakfast. We sat and ate, and she drilled me about the next steps for myself and my family, just like an elder, to make the lives of loved ones the pinnacle of their cares. I reassured her we'd be good, and that I had everything taken care of, and that there was nothing to worry about. I wish I had space. Y'all could come live with me, she joked. But I knew she was serious, and if that were realistic, I would have taken the offer. A part of me wishes I'd been able to help her more. If only I had the resources, the least I could have done was hire top-tier aid. If I'd had my own space, or even if hers was doable for my children, I would have cheerfully continued to wait on her hand and foot. But I know these daunting thoughts were useless. I'd done what I could do with what I had at the time, which was simply offering her my time and service with glee. Segment 2. Getting the call. At this point, things were getting serious. Everyone seemed to be in a panic, but I was at peace. Not because I'd accepted her fate, but because I didn't realize the severity of her condition. Family was rushing to see her as doctors were concluding her worsening condition. Still, she spoke life and expectancy. And me? I had hopes. Months had passed since she'd stayed with us, and so much had transpired in my life, from homelessness to the birth of my son. In that time, Karen had quite a few falls and had to be rushed to the hospital each time. It wasn't the falls themselves, but the hours she spent on the floor without food or hydration, causing her vitals to fall. At some point, things had gotten so bad, recovery seemed and resulted impossible. So doctors began giving final notices, telling us we needed to come as soon as possible as her life expectancy was unpredictable. I'm unsure if the severity was not processing in my mind or if I just refused to be sad or doubtful. I don't live like that. I believe in miracles. I believe in the impossible. On the other hand, my life itself was already chaotic. Processing her transition was not on my to-do list. So I didn't feed into the energy of panic and fear, and looking back, I don't regret it. What I would have changed, though, is the awareness and acceptance of her fading life. I wouldn't have ignored reality. I would have made peace before her final hours. Segment 3, Final Hours. This was happening all over again, for the third time, but this time it was closer to home than ever before. In high school, there was a boy I had class with. He was a comedian, to say the least. We got along well. We cut up in class, and I enjoyed his energy. I remember years later him pledging as a Q. Though we hadn't spoken in years, I'd come across his probate pictures on social media. I had the urge to comment and tell him how proud I was of him. For some odd reason, I never did. It wasn't long before he was tragically killed in a car accident. To this day, I wish I had taken just a few seconds to leave that comment. And again, I had a close neighborhood friend, so close we adopted one another, establishing our bond as brother and sister. The woman who raised him took a liking to me from a very young age. At some point, she grew very ill. I talked about going to see her, but as time passed, so did her body. Another missed opportunity. So when Karen's final hours came, so did the immense feeling of regret. I had failed at another opportunity to delight myself in the energy of a loved one before their appointed hour. This time, it was my own blood. She was the closest thing to a grandmother I'd ever known, though I never viewed her as such. She was the key to my grandmother in this lifetime, and I failed to take advantage of her experiences. Regret filled my being and still lingers today, though I do understand the passing of life is not actually death, rather the transition of one's soul to a new lifetime. So even though Karen's body was fading, I knew her soul was simply preparing for its next life, and that was the ultimate peace I needed. This was the last time I'd lay eyes on her with breath in her body. I spoke it to be so, though I didn't acknowledge the power of my words. My body was filled with anxiety as my cousin, her daughter, led us up to her room. We sanitized our hands, covered our clothes in protective gowns, and entered the room. I've been through this before at such a tender age. My sister experienced months of a coma, which she later recovered. Though Karen was not technically comatose, it appeared as such. They warned she was unresponsive, but again, I didn't fathom the severity of their words. She just looked asleep. I kept calling her name with hopes she'd hear my voice and wake up. She didn't. For a while, I stood in silence, just staring. He encouraged me to speak to her as if she understood. To him, she did. It's like he could feel her. I couldn't. But I spoke anyway, updating her about the kids, assuring her we were good. Her hands and face moved as I spoke. Maybe she does hear, I thought, but I didn't feel that way. Again, I fell silent. He spoke to her too. After some time, I felt nothing would change, so I kissed her goodbye for what I didn't realize would be the final time.